So we start, that can be mapped as begin, and then count equals 0 is there. Then after we are entering into the iteration. So I'm going to illustrate it like this: begin. So the count is equals to 0. Then we are entering into the iteration. So to enter into the iteration, I need a condition first. And since it is iterating through the no path, the condition should be represented as exactly opposite of it. Right? So the reason is, when we are like iterating from the no path, in the pseudocode, there should be a mechanism for me to iterate it in the yes path. So I can't change the flow, but I can change the condition. So I'm changing the condition to right opposite. So having the right opposite condition means it can go around in the yes path again, right? So that means if you have changed this condition into like is value larger than 0, these two statements are going to happen when that statement is answered as yes, right? When it is answered as no, then it will display the count. But in this case, they have asked the other question. So it is iterating through the no path. But when we are writing it using a while loop, we need to define the right opposite of the condition. So it is asking is value less than or equals 0. So I will ask value larger than 0. So if the value larger than 0, what I should do is, so to check whether this value is larger than 0, at the very first time, I have to ask for a value. So then only I will be able to check it. Then after, we can say count equals count plus 1. Right, so after the count, we are moving back into this enter a value. So this enter a value, this statement needs to be replicated over here as well. Right, so inside the count, we will be counting the numbers and we ask for a value. Right, so then of course I can end while, right? Then you can say it is end, right? Before it is been end, you have to display the count. So then we'll display the count after the while. And we can, first we end the while. After the while, we are displaying the count. So it completes like this. Okay, people, did you get this clearly? Yes, everyone? Have you got this clearly? Yeah, Denuka, since the start is there, it is been mapped into the begin. and then count equals 0 has been taken. So no worries, because after the begin, count equals 0, the initialization part is there. After the initialization, we are entering into the iteration structure, right? So this iteration happens in the no part, right? So to apply that on a pseudocode with the while loop, the condition should be true to get into a particular iteration. So even though while is happening, or like the while is happening with the condition comes to first, and it is checking this value first, we have to take this enter a value line just before the while loop. So that is why count equals 0 is there, and enter a value is asked. So then if the value is larger than 0, that means a positive number, not a 0 as well, it will taken into the number of numbers, so the count, right? So then we have to ask for another value, otherwise we can't run this program successfully. So you always ask a value, someone else is giving the value and updating it. So that particular count will be given at the end, how many, or like how much of numbers have been fed into the system. Okay, is that clear, everyone? Okay, if you got any mistakes, it's time for you to correct those things. There you go. Let me know when you are done. I'll give you maximum 2 minutes to copy this thing. Denuka, is it clear about your question?
Yes, sir.
Right, great. Okay, anyone who is still copying this? Okay, so moving forward, page number 8, I guess this is the very last one that we have discussed. Okay, so let's try to draw this, or like, let's try to write this flow chart. Let me write the question. This shouldn't be true flow chart. This should be write a pseudocode. Right, first you have to write the question, and then you can write the pseudocode. To all of these things, I'll give you 6 minutes. 2:56 is the time. So 3 past 2. Yes, people. Are we done? Can we move forward? Okay, so here we go. So how it's going to be? First, we should go with the begin part, right? So I'll use this space, so it will be easier for me to manage it. Let me take the, yes. Yeah, oh, not the heading. So begin should happen. Yes, after the begin, how it should go. So after the begin, total and count should be initialized, right? Total equals 0 and count equals 0. Then after, yes, people, what should be there after that? Yes, everyone, what should be there? Yes, any suggestions? Yes, very good, Udamya. Input a value should be there like we done in the previous one. Input a value. Then this is going on the years part. So that means we can use the while condition as it is, right? While we can say value larger than 0. Right? Then, yeah, what's the next line, people? Then it should be total equals total plus 1. I'm sorry, not 1, the value. Then count equals count plus 1 should be there. Yes, then after, yes, we should have the input a value again, right? Otherwise, there is no way to have the second value. So then after we can end the while. After ending a while, what should we do? Yes, we have to calculate the average, right? So average equals total divided by count. Then we have to display the average and to display the total. Then after we can end this. Yes, is that clear, everyone? Let me increase the font size a little bit. Just wait. Yeah. Is that clear, everyone? Any doubts regarding it? If you got any mistakes, it's time for you to do the corrections. I'll give you a minute. So it's 3:15. I'll stay until 3:16 if you are making the changes. All right, so let me check. We have done the sequence, we have converted the sequence into the pseudocodes in the first two examples that we did. And then we are going to, we have discussed the if conditions. So after that, we went with the iterations and we discussed there is a while structure as it shows over here. And we discussed the same thing can be written using the repeat until. So in the repeat until, the condition is going to be false if it needs to be iterated. And after we complete the things, we complete these flow chart one by one according to the while condition. Okay. So now we have discussed the ways that we can convert a particular requirement or a particular problem into an algorithm in searching for a solution. So we know now the algorithms can be represented in two different ways. One is the graphical representation, which is the flow chart. The other one is the textual representation, which we call the pseudocodes. And inside both the situations, in both the cases, we discuss how to illustrate a sequence, a selection, and the iteration using the flow chart as well as the pseudocode. Now we have the task of converting the algorithms into a program. So algorithms, so far the algorithms that we have done from the very beginning, adding these two numbers together, all these things, this flow chart as well as this pseudocode explains the algorithm in general format. So this is going to be, one of these are going to be the format that the programmer is going to receive in creating his program using some programming language. Now, in our syllabus, we are given the chance to create the programs using the programming language called Pascal, right? So now we are going to get to know how we are going to convert a particular flow chart or a particular pseudocode into the Pascal programming. All right, now when we need to create a Pascal program, we can use a simple text editor like Notepad, right? And we can use the Pascal syntax and type the particular Pascal code and save it with the Pascal extension, which is .pac, right? Or else, for the programming, from the people who are developing the programming language, they have developed certain IDEs. What do you mean by the IDEs? It is called integrated development environments. That means certain interface which help us to create a Pascal code. So we can use an IDE as well to create our pseudocode or to create our program with the help of a pseudocode or a flowchart. So today, I'm not going to use the Notepad, the general text editor that we have. Instead of that, I'm going to use an IDE, which is called the Char Pascal, right? There are different number of IDEs for the Pascal, like Turbo Pascal, Pascal plus plus kind of things. So in my case, I'm using the version called Char Pascal to code my Pascal program. So let me show you the Char Pascal interface. So this is how the Char Pascal IDE looks alike. Right, so there are many different things regarding this IDE, but I'm not going to explain everything for you because it is not there in your syllabus. So your information, this is the place, this white area is the place that we use to create our Pascal code in, or in simple terms for coding. And the latter part over here, this is the place where you can find if any error or any particular bugs are being there in my program. Hold on a second, people. Okay, so this white area is there to do the coding. right? And this place, the gray color area is to show you the any particular, if there is any errors, it will indicate over here. And this IDE is validating your code whenever you are starting to type it, right? So now what we should know when we are creating a particular, take it over here, man. Take it over here. Otherwise, you will hit on this. So, what we should know when we creating a particular, or like when we converting a particular, hold on, people. Okay, so now what we are going to do is we are trying to develop this flow chart, this particular flow chart into a Pascal code, right? So what is our purpose? Our purpose is to create a program which can take two numbers from the user and to add those two numbers and to display the total as the output, right? Okay, so the first thing that you need to learn is when you are typing or like coding a program from Pascal, this is the way that you are going to start it. You should start by a keyword called program. So it is a must. There should be a keyword called program. Then after, you should introduce some particular name for your program. And we haven't introduced any name when we are drawing the flowchart. We just draw it. But when it comes to the Pascal, we have to introduce a particular name for the program that we are developing. That is a one particular rule in the Pascal. So when you are giving a name, when you are proposing a name should be happen, or like the naming part should happen under a particular rules. There are certain rules that we have to obey when we are naming a program. So what are those rules? Those rules are there in your textbook, right? So if you move to the Pascal programming section in your textbook, page number, this particular page, 17. So you can see the topic called identifiers, right? So this identifier is a common name that is there to introduce a name of a variable, a name of a constant, and a name of a program. Now you already have the idea about the variables because we have used many variables in the in our flow chart. Even in this flow chart, we say like input two numbers and input two numbers as X and Y. So X and Y are the name of two variables. So likewise, if you are going to name a variable, as well as when you are going to name a program, as well as there is something else called constant, I'll tell you when the time comes. These three things must give a name with under the rules that they have introduced to us. So what are these rules? So it says reserved words in Pascal cannot be used for the identifiers. That means you can't use a reserved word as a name of the program, as a name of a variable, as a name of a constant. So what are these reserved words? Now, if you turn to the next page, you can see the reserved words. These are the reserved words. You don't need to remember these things, right? But we can't use, the Pascal will not allow us to use something like these words as an identifier. That means you can't use any of these names as a program name. Again, you can't use any of these names as a variable name as well as a constant name, right? And from the words that you can see over here is not very much likely to be used as a program name or a variable or a constant name, because they are something very specific. We are not intended to take one of these keywords or the reserved words as a program name or a variable name or a constant name, right? So other than that, there are some other rules. So it shouldn't be a reserved words. That means it should be a word except these words, right? Or it can be a letter as well. And this is another important one. Should start with an English letter. So it is a must. If your variable is going to identify with one particular letter, it should be always a letter. One particular character, it should be always a letter. If you are going to introduce a word as a name of the variable or a name of the program, it must start with an English letter. It doesn't matter whether it is a capital or a simple one, it should be an English letter. So rest of the letters, rest of the characters is going to be either the letters or the numbers or an underscore. And that's all that you can use. Right? So first character should be a letter. If you have the second and third characters and onwards, from second character onwards, those characters must be either a letter or a number or an underscore. You can't use any other characters inside an identifier or inside the name of a variable or inside the name of a constant. That means you can write a variable saying ABC, which is very eligible one, a very a legal one, right? Like ABC, because it is start from a letter and rest of the things are letters as well. So it is eligible. You can write a variable name as A1. Again, that is an eligible one because it starts from a letter and the next character is going to be a number. Again, it is a legal one. You can't name a variable like 1A. Why we can't name a variable like 1A? Because the first character should be a letter. Now here the first character is a number, so it is illegal. So you will be given an error type called syntax errors. when you done this kind of a mistake. As well as you cannot use, you cannot use variable names like this, like F space name. And why it cannot be a legal one? This is where it create the case, this space, because we can't use space as a character, right? It is only letters, numbers, underscores that we can use after the first character, and the first character should be a letter, must be a letter. So F space name will give you a problem. If you want, you can write it like this, F underscore then name. So no problem for that, right? But you can't start it like underscore F name, which is incorrect. Why it is incorrect? Yes, people, why underscore F name is incorrect? Yes, everyone, why underscore F name is incorrect? Yes, Dinelka, because it should start with a letter, right? So likewise, you have to remember what are the rules that you can use, that you should use when you are naming an identifier. So later they say these identifiers are not case sensitive. That means if you say art and all these words are also indicating the same art, right? So capital ART, simple ART, all capital ARTs indicate the same identifier, same one, right? Those are not different from each other. When it comes to the computer languages, the programming languages like Java, there are certain differences because it is case sensitive. This is not case sensitive. So capital simpleness is not going to be a problem, right? And there should not be any spaces between words. We discussed that because space is not a legal character that we can use. And the special characters such as following should not be included as an identifier. So we learn it again. We said the starting character should be a letter. Rest of the characters are going to be letters, numbers, and the underscore only. Not any other characters can be used. So it is there, and they said use of meaningful terms for identifiers can make program easily understood. Yes, it is. So it's better you use a meaningful program as a name, a meaningful name as a program name. It's not only for the program name, for the variable name, for a constant name, it's better you use something meaningful. Okay, so according to those rules, I'm going to name my program like this, add now. Because what we are trying to do through this program is we are going to add two numbers together and take the total. Okay, so as I mentioned before, first you have to go with the keyword program. It is a must. Then put a space. Then you can have the identifier name, which I use adnum. And then you have to put a bracket. Inside the bracket, input comma output words are must. Right? In your book, it says you don't need to put that input and output essentially, but to work with the charm Pascal, it is a must. So since your textbooks are saying it is not compulsory, in your examination, if you miss that, they won't cut away any particular marks, right? So then more importantly, at the end of the line, there should be a semicolon. which we call a line terminator. So semicolon is named as the line terminator. Okay, people, is that clear how to start a particular program, the coding from the Pascal? Yes, everyone, is it clear? Okay, so in any program, this is the only place where we are going to type indifferently. All other things, this program name will be there as it is, the brackets, input comma output will be there as it is, and the semicolon will be there as it is. So this is the place where you're going to change the name or do the difference in every other programs. Okay, so after this, as the second line, now when we are drawing the flow chart, we just start the flow chart and we say input two numbers as X and Y. That means what we are mentioning or what we are trying to say from that point, you take two numbers from the user and consider those two numbers as X and Y. That means some two variables, right? But when you are going to use variables in the Pascal program, we can't use the variable names straight away like we use in the flowchart. First, we have to initialize or we have to introduce the variables, and there is a data type for each and every variable in Pascal. What do you mean by the data type? Look at this. So in the Pascal, you can find different kinds of data types like this. There are 5 types of data types that is being introduced to you. So this means if we introduce any particular variable, we have to say this variable is going to contain this type of data, right? How the types are going to be differ, it is like this. So there can be integer type data. Integer type data means the data type which indicates the whole numbers, either a positive or a negative one. And if you are going to store any floating point values or any decimal numbers, we are going to introduce that type as real. So in case if you create a variable and that variable is going to contain 1.5 as the value, that variable first should be introduced as a real type variable. Then only Pascal will allow you to put or to hold 1.5 as a value of that variable. People, are you getting this, the data type? I'll show you when we are going to introduce the data type. First, you have to understand what is meant by the data type. Is it clear, the integer and the real? Dad, I still have a cough. Yes. Yes, everyone. Is it clear, the data types? Okay. And there is another data type called Boolean. It has only 2 values, which is true and false, right? And there is a variable type, there is a data type called Char. This data type is used to indicate single character, only a single character, which is given by the keyboard, and it is limited from the single quotes. Like so, in between single quotes, we can write our character. So if there is only one character, that can be introduced as the char data type. And if you want different amount of characters or like a sequence of characters as a value of a variable, you can introduce that as well. Again, in between single quotes, remember it is single quotes, and that data type is given the name called string. Okay, so there are 5 data types which are called integer, real, boolean, char, and string. Is that clear, everyone? Right, okay. Denuka, any problem? Okay. So now I'm going to tell you, according to our plan is taking 2 numbers and like considering them as x and y. No. Denuka, a very good question. Denuka is asking if we consider 7, it's belong to both integer and char. Denuka, 7 alone is an integer, but if you put 7 in between single quotes, then it is a char. The single quote is the characters which makes the difference, right? Okay. So since we need 2 variables in our program, which is x and y, first we have to introduce those. So when we are introducing a variable, we must use a keyword called var, which stands for variable. So whenever you are going to introduce a variable, we must use the keyword called var. After the var, you can put a space and write the name of your variable. So again, when you are writing the name for a variable, we have to remember those rules that we learned just before. What were the rules? It shouldn't be a reserved word. It must start with a capital or a simple letter. From the second character onwards, that character is going to be a letter or a number or an underscore. That's all, right? So we must remember those rules, right? And the way that we are going to introduce a variable is given in your books as well. Look at this. This is the way that they have introduced a variable. So they have used the keyword called var, then they have put a space, then they have used count. Now this count is a name for an identifier, in this case for a variable. So it is not a reserved word. It started from a letter and rest of the characters are letters as well. So it goes with the rules that they are asked us to obey. So it is okay. And then they use a colon. Then they have used the data type of the variable count. Here they have said it is integer. So then Pascal will understand, okay, there is a variable called count and the user or the program is going to give integer values to the count. That means count can be given the values like 1, 2, 10, 15, minus 20, minus 35, likewise. But count can never take a value like 25.7 because it is not an integer value. And a count can't take a value like ABC because it is not an integer. Are we clear? Yes, everyone, is that clear? This particular line, is that clear? Right, great. So here, this is not a particular program, people. Here they have given you 3 different ways that how the variables can be introduced. Now here in the first line, it's just one variable and its data type. In the second line, they have used the variable keyword or the var keyword. After that, they use a comma b. That means there are 2 variables, a comma b, and the value of those 2 variables are given here as the real. So that means this program is going to use 2 variables, which is a and b, which has the data type as real. That means a can contain the decimal values as well as b, right? Likewise, using a single var keyword, the single var, we can introduce a list of variables like this if we want. So here they have taken n1 and n2 as integer type variables, avg as real type variables. That means avg can contain decimal values. Pass as a Boolean type variable. Boolean type variable means what are the values that the pass can contain? Yes, people? If pass is a Boolean type variable, what type of values that the pass can contain? Pehara, not 1 and 0. It's the true and false that it can contain, though, not the 1 and 0. Right? It's true and false. Right? So they have taken a variable name called character. The data type is char. So the character variable can contain only 1 letter, which should be introduced in between single quotes. There are 2 variables called name and school, which are going to be considered as the string variables. Right? So name can have any particular name in between single quotes. So like Saman, Nimal, Kamal, everything can be there if you declare it in between single quotes. And school, again, you can use, right, what? Anula Vidyalaya in between single quotes, right? Dharmapala Vidyalaya in between single quotes. So it can be assigned to the school. So is that clear, people? How you are going to declare or introduce a variable into your program? Right. So let's introduce our variables. Now, according to our plan, we got X and Y. Let's assume this X and Y are going to be the integer values. So how we are going to introduce it? We have used the var, the keyword. Then we say X, comma, Y. I put a colon and say integer. And more importantly, I must put a semicolon. And remember, in Pascal, people, in most of the cases, at the end of the line, you must use a semicolon. Like more than 98% of the coding, we use semicolons at the end of a line. Otherwise, it's going to be indicate as a syntax error. Okay, so we have introduced our program with the name of Adnam, and we have introduced our 2 variables as integer variables. So hereafter, the real coding will start. So inside a Pascal program, to do the coding or to develop the algorithm, there is a block called begin and end. So we must write our code in between this begin and end. So you can see begin does not have does not has a semicolon. So it is a one place where we do not use a semicolon at the end of a Pascal line. As well as you can notice there is a full stop at the end of the word end. And that is another place where we do not use a semicolon as the end of the line. Is that clear, people? So we are going to write our codes or the algorithm implementation in between this begin and end. Earlier, what we have done is we have given a name and introduced our program. And then we have introduced the variables that we are going to use in between this begin and end. Is that clear up to this point? Yes, everyone? Okay, great. So now, what should be our program should do? Now, still we are at the very beginning of the flowchart. Still we haven't done with this input two numbers as x and y. Now we have introduced, there are two variables which are x and y. So now we have to say, take two numbers from the user, right? So that means when you execute this program, now you are developing the program from the Pascal, the Char Pascal interface. Once you run this program, there will be a black screen, and that black screen will show to the user, or like the black screen should ask a question or to inform the user to input a number to this program. In this case, he or she should input two numbers to this program. That means a meaningful message should be there on the black screen to give that idea to the user, or that have the idea to the user that the program is asking a number from him, right? Now think about a situation that you are using the ATM machine. When you insert the ATM card, the ATM machine will pop you up a screen saying, insert the PIN. So then as the users, we get the idea, okay, now this program is asking my PIN, so I have to enter my PIN. So likewise, this program, our program should give that kind of a message for the user. So he will input two numbers, so we can add those two numbers within the program, right? So to show something to the user, there are two methods that we can use inside a Pascal program. We call this, we call these methods a name as a function. We use a function. There are two types of functions that we can use. One is called the write. The other one is called the write ln. Right? So both the functions are used to write something on the screen. How we are going to write something on the screen? Inside these brackets, I can use two single quotes, and in between these single quotes, I can show something, or I can write anything which the program is there to show on the executing screen. So the difference between write and the write ln is, when you put something inside the write function, at the output screen, it will show ABC according to this coding in the output screen and blink the cursor right after the C. When you say right. Okay, Suzu. If you use right ln, if you are using right ln, what will happen? The content inside it will be shown, right? So let's say, as an example, I'm going to write PQR in between single quotes over here. So this particular thing will show PQR on the screen and take the cursor to the next line. Right? So now you can understand what's the difference between right and right ln. So right is just displaying the cursor at the right side of the content. Right ln will move the cursor to the next line. People, is that clear? Yes, everyone, is that clear? Okay, so let me show you what happens when we execute this. I'm going to make both my statement as right, so it will write ABC as well as it's going to write PQR. Let's see how. So in the Char Pascal, to hold the screen with the output, I'm going to use this readln coding. It is only for this particular IDE. You don't need to write it in the examination or when you are writing the codes regarding the Pascal, right? But Char Pascal needs a readln statement to hold the screen. Otherwise, the output screen will just come and go on. Like we can't see it, right? So readln ලිව්වම එයා ඒ screen එක hold කරගෙන ඉන්නවා අපි enter key එක open එකක්. Right? So now I'm going to run this program. I can run this program using this green arrow icon. So I click that. There you go. This is my output regarding this program. Can you see this? ABC is right over here. And the PQR is also typed after the ABC. Why it is being typed after the ABC at the right hand side? Because we have used the right keyword, right? The right function. So if I use right ln, I'll close this and I am using right ln over here. And then I'm running this thing. Look what has happened. Now ABC is at the first line, then the PQR is at the second line. Because this right ln will print the ABC on the screen and take the cursor to the place where the P is going to type. And then next one has the right statement. So it will write the PQR and place the cursor at the right side of it. It is because this is a right statement. Is that clear, everyone? Is that clear? Okay. Right, now since the time is up, I'm going to end the session from here, people. So by next week, we are going to build this program using the Pascal. Then later, we are going to write the Pascal programs for each and every flow chart that we have made. right? So be there on next day for the same time, right? I'll see you there for the same time. Since we are having the New Year holidays, we are going to have a holiday on 16th, people. So I'm going to meet you a week after, that is on 23rd. So we are not going to meet on 16th, and we are going to meet next on 23rd. So keep that in your mind. So we'll meet on 23rd and we'll discuss how the Pascal programming is done. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. Have a very nice weekend, and I wish you all to have a very good, happy New Year, right? Even though the situation of the country is not that good, I hope it's going to be better soon, right? So happy New Year, everyone. I'll see you week after. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Behara. Thank you very much. Right, Dinelka, thank you very much.